Hello, everybody, and welcome to Unity of Birmingham's live stream. We are so happy that you chose to spend this hour with us today. At Unity, we are transforming lives through the power of divine love, God love, self-love, neighborly love, because we are all expressions of God's love. We invite you to join us each Sunday morning at 11 a.m. and visit our website to see the other events and opportunities to serve that await you here at Unity. If this is your first time joining us, we give you a special welcome. Our speaker today is Reverend David Ault, and he personifies love and service to others. David Ault is a prophetic voice in the human development consciousness studies movement as an unwavering crusader for mindfulness, global literacy, and social justice. He abides by the motto that people would rather see a lesson than to hear one. Even so, today's topic that he will be exploring is, how do you know? How do we arrive at a personal place of knowing? Reverend David will examine the fundamental path for how each of us get accustomed to our relationship with our internal knowing. We invite you to open to receive this wonderful messenger and this message, and we hope that it will feed your mind, your spirit, and your soul.
My name is Evelyn McDonald. I'm one of the chaplains here at the Unity of Birmingham. And I'm so grateful this morning to join together with you in prayer, to practice a presence and experience our oneness. We begin by taking a moment to focus on our breath. Take a deep breath and focus for a moment on the breath. As you exhale, feel yourself relaxing and letting go. Take another breath. And as you exhale, turn your inner ear and hear these words and affirmations with your heart. Hear these words as your own. There's only one infinite mind, one spirit, one presence. All that is or has ever been is created by this great mind out of itself and nothing else. Whether it be as vast and magnificent as universes, planets, beautiful mountains, or peaceful oceans, or as simple as a smile, a hug, or a bug, it is still the one mind, this one spirit, expressing itself into life. Therefore, all that I am and everything around me is an expression of this spirit. Since I am of that spirit, I am naturally imbued with the ability to recognize the presence of spirit in everything and everyone. I have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and the heart to know. I see the presence in the beauty of the sunset. I hear it in the crashing waves. I feel it in the wind. I taste it in a chocolate bar. And I know it is in the hearts of everyone I meet. I am committed to recognizing the presence of spirit in places and people where it may seem to be hidden. In this moment and every moment, I am mindful of the presence, the beauty, love, and power of Spirit all around me and within me. When I think of those I would call my enemies, I am mindful that they too are created of the same stuff and by the same power that I am. I choose to be mindful of the truth, the goodness and love within each of them. When I look into myself and see the confusion, conflict, and chaos, I am mindful that I am an expression of an infinite power that is never confused or lost. My way is to be mindful of the presence of Spirit within me, mindful of the presence of Spirit in everything around me. Gratitude rushes over me as I realize that where I am, Spirit is. Its power is present in and through me. Dear sweet Spirit, what is known everywhere in the mind of God, everyone, everywhere is illumined by our very knowing. So I call forth today wisdom, love, light, peace, wholeness, beauty, harmony, freedom, justice, inclusion, abundance, prosperity, and health for everyone, everywhere. This is the golden truth about all of us as God's beings, created in the image and likeness of God. I am deeply and profoundly grateful for being blessed to know the golden truth, and I declare it to be so for each and every one of us. I speak this truth for everyone who is open and receptive to receive. Together, we lovingly release this to the love of God, knowing that it is done even before the words were spoken. Please say this with me. Thank you, Holy Spirit. And so it is. Amen.
I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got love like a mountain, I've got love like a mountain, I've got love like a mountain in my soul. I've got love like a mountain, I've got love like a mountain, I've got love like a mountain in my soul.
Hello, Unity of Birmingham. It's Reverend Dr. David Ault. And I got to tell you, it is always such a beautiful, sweet surprise to get the text or the email requesting me to come back. It feels like such a beautiful, sweet honoring to be with you. So glad to share a Sunday with you once again. I moved, still in Atlanta, but I moved after 11 years, and I've been very busy in adjusting into a new space. And I was hanging out in my new backyard with a friend, and this gorgeous cardinal flew in. And my friend said, "Did you know that cardinals are monogamous? They mate for life." I didn't know that, and we continued to talk about birds and things. And a couple of weeks went by, and somehow the topic of birds came up with somebody else. And I said, "Did you know that cardinals are monogamous? They mate for life." Now, here's what's interesting. Two different scenarios, two different time frames, but I did nothing to research what my friend said in that first scenario. In other words, I just took what was said to me and then sort of was a mouthpiece to give it to someone else. There was no research on my part. There was no studying on my part. I just assumed that what he said was true and then passed it along as if I knew what I was talking about. So why am I so fascinated with this? Because I realize how much we do this as a species. Humans, what we do is very often we will take things and we will just pass it on. It's like a sea of public opinion. And I think it's important to look at this, because if that's the case, then how much are we walking around with up in our minds that's just opinion? The title of today's talk is, How Do You Know? How do you know what it is that you profess to know? How do I know what it is that I profess to know? Because if, like the cardinal example, all that we're doing is we're just taking what's been given to us and then passing it along, there isn't really any roots to that. No roots of applicability, no roots of research or authenticity around that. And I'm not saying that every single thing that we talk about is that way, but I wonder how much is. So, for example, as someone who has been a minister, public speaker, a spiritual teacher, I can't tell you how often I have reflected upon the fact that I may have been studying something, or I may have heard something from a particular training and then got up there and just gave that bit of data out to the people without any kind of pause or examination. In other words, same kind of thing, just being a mouthpiece, passing those things along. And something shifted in me years ago. I was at a conference and I heard this speaker say that people would rather see a sermon than hear one. And I got to tell you, the hair on the back of my neck stood up, because I was like, exactly. That is the prototype. That is the model by which I want to do life, by which I want to be a teacher. I want to be more in integrity with what it is that I'm saying. I want to practice it. I want to try to live it and embody it. In other words, to live out loud the philosophical principles that I say that we should follow, right? To live out loud means to be transparent and to be this mirror of opportunity and example of everything that we're saying that we subscribe to spiritually. And so, how do you know? How do you know what it is that you know unless we individually go into the privacy of our own prayer chamber and our own life laboratory and work these things out? And so that's a really important thing. I think in the age of heightened technology, particularly social media, How long have we been doing this now? The social media thing. I think I logged on to Facebook for the first time in 2008. That's a long time. And suddenly there is this invention called a share button. And suddenly, very much like the cardinal conversation, we are rapidly sharing things that we have not taken the time to examine ourselves. And before you know it, things go viral. And before you know it, the sea of misinformation has gotten muddy and wide and very deep. And I think that there is a solution. I think there is a solution to bringing integrity to what it is that we say or profess to know. And that is to do the work, to really do the work. I'm a great follower of Baba Ram Dass, and there were three things that Ram Dass talked about. They're conceptual things, but three ways in which we think that we know something. And so one of them, obviously, is through direct experience. I was trying to think of an example, and so I could talk to you with a little bit of authority about Asia, because I have been to Southeast Asia and areas like Cambodia and Thailand now since 2004, every year, sometimes twice a year. So I could talk to you about the ins and outs of Cambodia. I could talk to you about the topography. I could talk about the statistics and the education and the water situation. I could talk about tourism and growth. And I would seemingly come off as someone who knew a lot about Cambodia, which I do. But guess what? I wasn't born there. I'm not Cambodian by birth or by lineage. And so there are many things culturally that I don't know. The things that I profess to know have been filtered through my Western perceptions. And so even with all of that direct experience, there is still a lot that is unknowable in my world. That's why I must continuously, in the work that I do in global education, enter into every interaction with beginner's mind. Because the most dangerous, the most harmful thing is to show up in those situations and pretend or act like it is that we do know, and make everything out there lean and bend towards what we say we want, rather than taking into the consideration the culture and the nuance and all of the other hidden details that are there in order to work with different people. And so, but still, direct experience. So there are things that you have done for a long time. There are fields of study, there is occupation, there are all different types of things that you could say, just like I just said, that you have been heavily involved with. And yet, do you know every single thing about that? Good to ponder. The next thing is, the next way we think that we know something is that somebody tells you. Again, the example like a minister or a teacher or a boss or a trainer. They get up, we get up, and we say all of this stuff. I began to add years ago this Sunday caveat, and it was, may the words from my mouth and the meditations of my heart come from the purest truth. You are invited to keep what works for you and to discard the rest. And just to notice what it is that you want to discard, because maybe there, in something seemingly uncomfortable, is the next evolution of the gift of spirit for you. Something like that is what I would offer. And so it's an open-ended invitation to think for yourself. Not just because I say it or anyone else says it, to think. Not just because a teacher tells you something. Think, absorb, and then begin to examine those things on your own. And then thirdly, studying through logic. So that is the That's the sort of intellectual aspect of all of this. You know, how many times have we all read a book and then think we know something? When really what's happening is we're simply regurgitating intellectual material rather than reading it and then going out and finding a personal way to apply it. I know that this sounds very sort of nitpicky, but there's a point to being someone who is committed to deepening the way in which they profess to know. Because what the world does not need is more surface knowing. What the world really can benefit from are the people who are cultivating the deep roots of knowing through experience and application. And so, direct experience, somebody tells you, studying through logic, those are conceptual components. And I've been thinking and exploring my own personal habits and actions and finding what would be a seminal thing that would really deepen your knowing, that would bring integrity to your life. And I've come up with one thing, and it's not the most comfortable thing in the world, but let me tell you, it really does bring that experience and that quiet power to one's presence. And I believe that there's a gift there for you. I believe that there's a richness there for you. I believe there's a healing there for you. And in turn, you then begin to bring all of those elements to the people that you come in contact with. And so it's this. It is examine how you have created a life around prevention. I call it prevention energy. Meaning, examine how you have crafted your world in order to keep things from happening, to keep things at bay, to prevent. Because when you think about that, there is a belief then in the thing that you're trying to prevent. There is a high energy at stake, a high commitment to the impending happening that you are trying to stop. And so when you think about the fact that much of our human experience consists of prevention energy, we are building a life, we are saving for something, we are ensuring something, all for that moment when we have to keep our sense of safety and hold something at bay. So what prevention energy does is it has a tendency to turn us away from our fear. It's like, oh, I don't have to deal with that fear. I don't have to deal with that thing that is painful because I'm gonna buttress myself. I'm gonna build a fortress around my heart or my mind in order to protect myself from that thing. And so in essence, it's a turning away. And I will tell you, when we turn away from those things, we are not a person who knows. We are not a person who knows. We are a person who may espouse a lot of information, but we are not a person of depth who knows. The people who have cultivated this rich knowing, how do you know? Those people are the ones who turn to. Those are the people who walk towards the thing that they are fearful of. Those are the people who do not sit for very long on their pain or their grudge or their fear or their hesitation. They move into the states of vulnerability that are required to keep the heart open and to keep the heart fresh and to keep the heart willing to be teachable. Those are the people. Those are the people in their willingness to be humbled that know. And let me tell you, when you are around those people, it's like being in the presence of a master. because vibratorially, spiritually, energetically, haven't you felt it? Haven't you leaned in just a little bit more to what it is that they are saying? Because they have been willing to lean in to their own vulnerabilities and their own fear. They have not stopped and labeled themselves as any one thing. They have been willing to shed all of the varying identities that most of us spend a lot of time building up. Most of us spend a lot of time trying to preserve. And I feel like I'm just getting to that point in my own life where I am so willing to shed this identity and to shed this identity and to, as I often say, cling lightly to what I think I need, but to move into the mystery with such greater ease than trying to preserve the history. Move into the mystery and less of the preserving of history. And so with that comes a deeper connection to what I call capital R reality. When we're trying to preserve and trying to turn away, what we're trying to keep at bay is small r reality. It's this one-dimensional thing that we're talking about that is our human experience. And so we can spend our entire lives running away, reading what to do, what to do, what to do. Even adopting some type of a practice, a spiritual practice, not because we have turned to vulnerability, but because we're trying to keep something at bay. I got to tell you, that's what most prosperity courses are built around. It's like, how do I keep myself out of financial ruin? Instead of, let me look at and turn to all of the thoughts of not being good enough. Let me explore the genesis of where this narrative came from, of why I've been holding on to a consciousness of poverty and of lack. Because I'm so willing to cling less lightly to that, to let my walls of fear and scarcity down. So in order to be a person who has a knowing of sustainability, who has a knowing of not the opulence from the human term, but the spiritual opulence. Do you know what I'm talking about? Oh my God, where in those moments of quiet, you really can sense the magnitude, the richness, the infinite nature of good that is all around us. But I can only do that when I let my defenses go and I stop trying to outrun my bills and outrun my fear. How do you know what you know? How do you know what you know? How do I know that a cardinal mates for life? Well, I did Google it, and guess what? It's true, according to Google. But I want to be more careful next time about just saying things at random. I want to watch my conversation. I want to really examine the things that I share. And I want to become someone so willing to turn to the things that frighten me. Whether it's aging, whether it's illness, whether it's financial in nature, whether it's conflict, whatever it might be, I want to turn to it. Because in my turning to it, I am someone who is willing to have my knowing expanded through experience. That's my prayer for you. That's my hope for you in my heart, That some of you, someone out there, maybe it's just one person, hears this and goes, wow, I get it. I want to be not a spiritual warrior. I want to be a spiritual knower. Spiritual knower. Somebody who leans in willingly and allows themselves to be used fully by what we understand God to be. May we all strive for that. God bless you. Thank you once again for having me. Till next time.
Thank you, David. What a great message today. How do we know? How do we know when we are speaking the language of God? Thank you for sharing. And I want to say that you are always welcome here at Unity of Birmingham. And as we work to keep Unity of Birmingham alive and well, we need your support. So we ask that you would log on to our website, unitybham.org, and please give a generous donation to our ministry. Our mailing address is 2803 Highland Avenue, Birmingham, Alabama, 35205, if you would like to mail in a contribution. We thank you for your generous contributions, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. So, with that being said, let us close with our prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The love of God watches over us. I am the love of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.